Hi, welcome. Today we're here to learn a little bit about class.
Oh, Mother, we're not supposed to be doing class. It's quarantine.
Not that kind of class. We're here to learn about the tool, classroom assessment scoring system. So, why is so important to learn about class? When I started in the field, there were not really any tools that we could use to observe interactions of an adult or the teacher with the children. We knew that what we did was important, but we didn't know why it was so important or what was the evidence behind this importance, as what are the skills that we need to use to be really high class quality and give those interactions that will make the difference in a child's life. When class came about, there was not really any research that showed the importance of those interactions and what it could do. So the first study they did was on a more disadvantaged group. The group that they chose was single females that had children, because generally that group, when they started kindergarten, they were at a lower level than their peers. And they saw that when children that were in that group attended a preschool that was high in class or that scored high in those interactions, the child was no longer at a lower level. So that gap had come to a same level. That is massive. First time a research shows that what you do in the classroom will make a difference in the child's life. They started with the pre-K tool and then they decided that they could expand it to other groups. So they did toddlers, infants, as well as school agers. Because we work in preschools, I'm going to show you the 3 books that they have with all of the information for class. So the first 2 is for infants and toddlers. Infants. Second 2 for toddlers, and the third tool is for preschool. And you can see these are kind of like my Bibles. I use them all the time because it just gives us a really good language to talk to other teachers on how to improve and what skills we need to improve. I want to show you a little bit about it so you get familiar. Again, this is only an introduction. We're not going to go in detail, but I really would like you to learn about this tool that I think it's magnificent. Oops. So, first we need to learn about the language that class uses. Class uses domains. Those are the big areas that are divided into. The infant has 1 domain, the toddlers has 2 domains, and the pre-K has 3 domains. Then every domain is divided into dimensions. So what do they mean? For example, this is the pre-K class tool. In the domain under the pre-K, they have instructional support, classroom organization, and emotional support. Under instructional support, they have the dimensions concept development, quality of feedback, and language modeling. Then what do they mean by these dimensions? It's expressed in the indicators. So under the dimension concept development, there is analysis and reasoning, creating, integration, and connection to the real world. But then you start thinking, what does that mean? That's when they develop these behavior markers that tell you exactly what the observers or what a teacher should be doing and looking for to score high. So what this tool does is it's reliable and valid. And the reason it's reliable and valid is because it has been tested that all of these behavioral markers, is done consistently and frequently in a classroom, will improve your outcome for the children. And it gives us really straight language. Let me go in detail on just one so we can get an idea of what this means. So under analysis and reasoning, they say that you have to ask, or the teacher has to ask, why and how questions, as to allow the kids to problem solve. That means not giving away the results. Let them explore, try, and figure out the solution to their problems by predicting and experimenting, also using classification and comparison and evaluation. I always use a simple example that happened naturally in my class. It was not even preset. So we were doing group time and a little ball rolled in between the cubby area, and it was really hard to reach. It was a narrow and very thin area. So the kids couldn't get the ball back, and it was becoming really disturbing. So instead of me grabbing something and pushing the ball out and giving it back to the child, I said, wow, how can we get it out? So there I was using that how question. And then I let the kids try to problem solve and figure out ideas. So they came with theories or predictions of what would work. They first suggested that they could use their fingers or a piece of paper. So I said, well, let's try it. So they went on trying it and they did not work. So I asked them, why do you think it didn't work? And they said, it's too short, it doesn't reach. And the other one said it just moves around, it cannot get it. So they were evaluating their predictions. And then they said, well, what else could we do? And they kept on coming with ideas until they kind of lost a little track, but I did not give away the answer. Actually, I let it be there till the next day. And later on, I went again and said, well, yesterday we tried our fingers, paper, they had tried a shoe, they had tried so many different things, and they hadn't worked. So we started analyzing why they hadn't worked, and that's when we did that comparison and that experimentation. They said the shoe was too thick, so I said, oh, so we need something thin. Then they said the paper was too flimsy, or it's just too soft, they would call it. And I said, oh, so it's too soft, so it's not strong enough, it's flimsy. So we need something that it's hard. And till eventually one of the kids was able to think, oh, let me go get a stick. And they went outdoors and they got a stick and they got it out. The cool thing about this is that when things like that happened again, of course, the ball did get stuck again in the same spot. I never had to say anything. They would go and get a stick and get it right back out. But they were even able to use the same skill in other situations, because when outdoors a ball got stuck on the tree, they immediately thought of a hard, long tool to get it out, which happened to be a broom. And they did it, and they were very successful at it. So really using any learning opportunity to expand with those how questions, allowing to problem solve, to predict, classify, and evaluate. So that's kind of like, I'm sure you as a teacher already are using a lot of these behavior markers. What makes the difference is that you have to do them in frequency and duration. So you have to do them consistently throughout the day, not only once, but many times throughout the day. So they become really important and they will make the difference. Let's go now through the different tools. This is a little summary of them. And in the infants, as I said, there is one domain, the responsive caregiver, and in there is dimensions as the relational climate, teacher sensitivity, facilitated exploration, and early language support. The reason it's only one domain is because the needs of infants are very different than a preschooler or a school ager or a toddler. And then under each of them, they have indicators. And these indicators will come, you analyze them, they have those behavioral markers that it's exactly what are you supposed to do. What do they mean by relational behaviors? What do they mean by emotion expression? For the toddler tool, there is 2 main domains, emotional and behavioral support and engaged support for learning. And under them, there is the dimensions. I'll give you a minute to read them, as well as the indicators. So under positive climate, they're talking about relationships. And when they're talking about relationships, the behavioral markers that they will be looking at is like close proximity. When you're with children, are you far away or are you on the floor at their level? You know, that's close proximity. Are you near them or are you far away from them? Are you doing interactions? Are you doing interactions with them? The relationship, are you having eye contact? They look at to see if you're having frequent and consistent eye contact. Is there a they don't call it smiles, but they call it where you know, is it like a pleasant conversation happening? So that's what they're looking at, those very, very specific behavior markers to happen constantly and frequently. Then we go to the pre-K, and in the pre-K there is 3 domains. Now, out of these domains, it's important to mention that emotional support and classroom organization tend to score very high naturally in a pre-K classroom. The way we set up our environments are very conducive to a good emotional support and classroom organization. You know, the emotional support is really focusing that interaction that you have with the kid, becoming that important person to that child. In classroom organization, I always think of this well-engined machine that runs smoothly. You know, is there a lot of time lost between an activity or another? Are you providing activities? Is your classroom set up properly? And then instructional support is really focused on those moments that a teacher has to do a lot of the interaction. Unfortunately, instructional support is where we do score the lowest. So I always try to focus on this area because this is what's going to bring us to improve in general as the preschools, as well as it's going to make a huge difference in the outcome of each child. Research shows that if in instructional support you improve half a point in their score, when they come and observe, when an observer comes and observe you and looked at class, the scale is from 1 to 7. And when, even if you scored a 3, but now you scored a 3.5, that improvement in the score will make a huge difference in the child's outcome. So the child will be better prepared if you are able to improve. So that's why instructional support, I think, in pre-K is so important to take consideration. And a lot of things you already do. It's just doing them frequently and consistently. Again, those 2 terms are so important. What we reviewed was the concept development, the analysis and reasoning. Remember, that was asking those how and why questions, allowing the kid to predict, to compare, to evaluate what they were doing, not giving it away. There is also quality of feedback and language modeling. If we had more time, we could go in detail on all of this. Unfortunately, this is only a general overview of class. I hope this has really motivated you to continue your journey in learning about class and the importance of this tool. And if you have any questions, please try to reach me, or you can always go to teachton.com and they have a lot of information about class.